Welcome back to the channel, folks, where today we look at another episode in Field Botany, today being the 14th of June 2026 in season 2 of our plants. Today's plant is something of an unscrupulous character of meadow grassland, stealing the nutrients and water from the roots of grasses. However, worry not, this behaviour is somewhat advantageous to improving meadow grassland, and we'll show you how and why in the upcoming video segment. The plant that we are looking at today is known as Yellow Rattle or Rhinanthus minor, and this is a plant in the parasitic Family Orobanhcaceae or the Broomrape Family. Yellow Rattle is a herbaceous annual standing 20 to 50 centimeters high. It is a hemiparasitic plant with 5 petals, the upper 2 forming a distinctive hood with projecting teeth. Its distinctive form consists of a projecting flower from an inflated pale green bract, often standing out against the darker background of its habitat meadow grassland. As the season progresses, Yellow Rattle will set seed in these inflated bracts, which when they dry out and are shaken by the wind, literally rattle. The seeds themselves are encircled by a flattened band or flange. Yellow Rattle is seen in meadows during the months of May and August. Leaves. The leaves of Yellow Rattle are oppositely paired on the stem, 1 to 5 centimeters in length, and generally lanceolate or oblong in shape. The margins are toothed and the leaf stalk is absent, and therefore it is sessile. Stem. The stem is upright, solid, squarish, black spotted and sometimes branched. Roots are fibrous and attached to those of other plants, as we will see shortly in the up and coming segment. Habitat. Yellow Rattle is an annual grassland plant of 10 to 50 centimeters in height. It thrives in nutrient-poor grasslands, meadows and areas like permanent pastures and dunes. It can also be found on roadsides and waste ground, and the preferred habitat of the plant is dry fields or meadows. In today's episode, we venture forth into a small urban linear nature reserve composed of a number of habitat mosaics, one of which is a small meadow measuring about 100 by 50 metres in length, which is well maintained and highly productive. In today's episode, we are going to look at the hemiparasitic plant, Yellow Rattle, typical of the family Orobanhcaceae, in controlling and regulating the growth of grasses and allowing other forbs or herbaceous plants to establish, and increasing the overall biodiversity component of the meadow habitat. Elsewhere on the reserve, we will also take opportunity to film a similar hemiparasitic plant known as red Bartzia or Odontis vernalis. Okay folks, this is just a little brief introduction to today's video, where we're seeking out a plant known as Yellow Rattle. We're in the meadow component of a local nature reserve called Railway Terrace or Raw Nook Local Nature Reserve, which is a small urban nature reserve. But in today's episode we're in a very healthy meadow component, and I just want to emphasize that to you by doing a quick visual survey by eye. The plant that we began panning in on is meadow cranesbill, and either side of the little path is white and red clover. Here in front of me we have all the usual culprits in terms of grasses, meadowgrass, meadow foxtail, a fescue here, and the cocksfoot, and further yonder we have the Yorkshire fog. We also, behind me, have the oxeye daisy, leucanthemum, the meadow buttercup, and just behind the camera some creeping buttercup. We also have some creeping thistle, and I nearly omitted to mention the birdfoot trefoil. Last year in season 1 we documented the plant known as the wild carrot just over there, and slightly later in the season we looked at field scabious. We also found a solitary stand of orange hawkweed just over there, and we filmed that today, and that video will be coming to you shortly. So just sat here taking a casual look in the distance and around me. We've identified something like 15 plants on this spot, and that's great for the pollinators. As you can see from the insect activity around me, it's absolutely buzzing with bees, hoverflies and other creatures. Now, the plant that we specifically have come to look at today is known as yellow rattle, so called because the seeds dry out and will rattle in the wind. Yellow rattle is a semi-parasitic plant on other grass species, and one of the reasons why we might be seeing a slight increase in species floristics is for two reasons. One, that there has been much more hand sowing of wild seed, or two, the yellow rattle has actually done its job, because one of the reasons for its planting is to control the tall meadow grasses and allow other plants such as orchids and other floristics to gain a purchase in the habitat. So one or two reasons why we might be seeing this healthy spread of flowers this year. But that's great news for pollinators, and it makes for a very productive meadow. We also just last year filmed the knapweed, the common knapweed as well. So I'll make a list alongside me, either here or here, of those species that I'm actually seeing here at the moment, just to show you how important a little meadow or field can be in increasing biodiversity and helping our insect pollinators. But the main focus of today is this plant, which is known as yellow rattle. Here we can see the toothed lanceolate leaves, which are opposite on a round stem and alternate at right angles as we move up the stem, where the flowers, which we've also imaged, become flat round seed pods which dry out and eventually rattle in the wind. So we'll cover the plant in more detail now in the video that follows. So before our next video segment, let's just outline the how and why of hemiparasitism. In this comparative slide, we compare and contrast the holoparasite with the hemiparasite, and it soon becomes apparent that the main difference is the presence or absence of chlorophyll, leading to a dependence on the host. An example of a holoparasitic plant in the family Orobanhcaceae is a plant such as common toothwort or Lathraea squamaria. In these images of toothwort, we can see the plant completely lacks chlorophyll and therefore is wholly dependent on the roots of trees such as alder and hazel. In the meantime, back to hemiparasites. Here in this diagram, it can be seen that the parasitic plants contain a specialist root structure known as a hostorium, which has the effect of causing pressure gradients, moving nutrients, minerals and water from the host plant into the parasitic plant. In effect, this action suppresses the growth of grasses, allowing herbaceous plants and forbs to establish earlier in the season and therefore increase the biodiversity of the meadow. In this diagram, we see the impact of transition on herbaceous plants and forbs as a result of the interaction between host and parasite, effectively suppressing the growth of grasses. The family Orobanhcaceae contain a number of plants which are partly parasitic and contain chlorophyll and are found in low nutrient habitats. They include red Bartzia, yellow Bartzia, common eyebright, lousewort and common cowweed. As follows, we illustrate two hemiparasitic plants. Red Bartzia, the next in the series, which has a preference for herbaceous hosts. And the second, a hemiparasite in the family Orobanhcaceae, common eyebright, otherwise known as Euphrasia nemorosa. Okay folks, welcome back to the channel, where today we've returned to the other half of Railway Terrace to give an introduction to the plant of today, which is the yellow rattle, or Rhinanthus minor. So called because the little flower has a profile in the shape of a rhinoceros, and indeed the Latin or Greek name translates to small nose, which is the profile that the flower gives. So the plant of today is yellow rattle. As we explained in the introduction to the meadow, it's a hemiparasite, namely it lives on the roots of grasses such as the Poaceae, and there are two other plants which do that, eyebright, red Bartzia, are all semi-parasitic plants. So this one lives on the roots of the grasses and the Fabaceae, or the pea family, and it will suck water and nutrients out of these tall grasses. And the consequence of that, it means it will yield an environment where the other forbs or plants such as the low growing herbs have a chance to establish and therefore promote wider and better meadow diversity. As I said, this is the plant. It's a square stemmed plant with 4 angles on it, often mottled black or striated, and the leaves are narrow and thin and sessile, meaning they join the stem without a stalk. They are by and large coarse, pointed, pinnately pointed, I don't know if the camera can pick that out, and have tooths along the edge, or teeth along the edge. So it's a serrated toothed margin on the sessile leaves, and the leaves are opposite and will traverse up the stem alternatively. So we have opposite leaves traversing at right angles up the stem. The flower itself sits in an inflated calyx, which you can see, which is often very conspicuous because it's a lighter lemony yellow and stands out against the greener background of the grasses. And protruding from that, we have the small yellow flower. And one of the reasons for coming back today is we really wanted to get in here and do some close-up macro photography, because you will need a lens or a loupe to look at this flower, and we can see that it has a little purple or violet flower, and this is one of the way, together with the calyx teeth and the flower, that we can distinguish between the confusion species, which is the large yellow rattle, or the greater yellow rattle, and that's one potential confusion species which we'll cover in the video further. And we'll also cover the basis of parasitism, because plants parasitize in two ways. They can either be holoparasitic, such as the broomrapes, where they have no chlorophyll at all, or they can be hemiparasitic and have obvious chlorophyll but still derive nutrients from these host grasses by tapping into their roots by a little structure known as a hostorium. And the whole basis of yellow rattle is it maintains a water pressure or turgor substantially lower than the plant root, causing water and nutrients to flow into yellow rattle and restrict the growth of these tall grasses and allow other herbaceous annuals and perennials to make its way through the meadow sward. So that's the basis of yellow rattle and why it's planted, and it is known as Rhinanthus minor, and it's a plant in the family Orobanhcaceae, of which we'll be looking at one or two other plants which are also in that family, such as the red Bartsia and the eyebright, which are semi-parasitic. So before we look at further footage taken in the field, let us look at the features and characteristics which will enable us to identify and find it in the field. As always, we include a detailed botanical slide for those of you who may wish to study the botany of the plant in more detail, and this slide may be stopped at any point in order to make reference to the details in it. So let's begin by looking at the floristic and vegetative characteristics of the plant. Yellow rattle is a herbaceous annual growing between 10 and 50 centimetres in height. It is a meadow plant of dry meadows or well-drained grassland and is in the family Orobanhcaceae, or put simply the Broomrape family, one of a number of plants which are hemiparasitic, as illustrated. So let us illustrate the structure of this dainty flower using a macro fly round using a ×10 diopter. The plant is composed of small yellow flowers with a distinctive inflated green calyx that enclose the petals and to which the petals protrude. Yellow rattle contains 5 petals, the upper 2 of which are fused, forming 2 lipped yellow petals that have a corolla with the upper lip being flattened on both sides and featuring 2 short violet teeth. The upper hood, containing 2 fused petals, therefore contain the 4 stamens and 1 stigma. The relative length of the protruding violet teeth is therefore important in distinguishing the difference between lesser and greater yellow rattle. As can be seen in these slides, the remaining 3 petals form a lower lip, which is in fact 3-lobed. Yellow rattle has 5 petals, circa 12 to 15 millimeters in length. The base petals form a tube, and the upper 2 are joined, forming a hood with teeth-like projections, which are violet. There are 4 sepals, which are 12 to 18 millimeters in length, and the bases are joined, flattened, enlarged in fruit, and almost hairless. There are 4 stamens under the upper petal lobes, and 1 stigma, the tip of which is swollen and the style long. It has 1 ovary, which is 2-celled. The flowering period is between the months of May and August. There are a number of confusion species in the family Orobanhcaceae. However, the main confusion may likely be caused in distinguishing very similars in the genus, such as lesser and greater yellow rattle, and we include the following slide. The key features being the size of the upper lip teeth and the shape of the calyx tube. And finally, fruit, and the reason why it is called yellow rattle. The fruit consists of 1 rounded flat capsule splitting lengthwise and is of the size 10 to 12 millimeters. The seeds are few, 4.5 millimeters, flattened and have a flattened encircling wing. Here we can see the seeds within the dried capsule, and in this slide we see harvested seed with the encircling wing. And finally, the leaves of the plant, which are opposite paired on the stem and are 1 to 5 centimetres in length. The shape is oblong to lanceolate, and the margins are toothed to sharply toothed. The leaf stalk is absent and the stipules also absent. Yellow rattle is known by a number of common vernacular names, all of which are self-explanatory. Hair rattle, pennygrass, rattle basket, copscomb and meadow maker. And the plant is in the family Orobanhcaceae or the Broomrape family. Likewise, the Latin binomial, where the prefix Rhinanthus comes from the Greek meaning nose flower, which refers to the shape of the upper lip of the flower. And Rhinanthus is a combination of the Greek rhinos, meaning nose, and anthus, flower. The suffix minor simply means smaller or lesser. So, let us allow our plant to speak for itself. Well, that's it from me, folks, and this deep dive into the yellow rattle and world of parasitic plants. Once again, folks, thank you very much indeed for watching, and hope you can join me on the next episode on Red Bartzia, another parasitic plant. If you have liked or enjoyed this video or found it interesting or educational, please like, share and subscribe to help this channel become successful. In the meantime, all that remains to be said, in the words of Maggie, our international symbol of floral appreciation, is whatever the weather may be, go outdoors and enjoy it.